My name is Brittany and I'm 21 years old. I've always considered myself to be extremely confident and flirty. I don't always make the best decisions, and this night proved to be no exception. My friends Alina and Michelle decided to get a group of friends together and take me out to dinner and clubbing for my birthday. After dinner, we headed over to the club we would be celebrating at. We were escorted directly to VIP. That's when the party started. Drinks were flowing and my friends and I danced the night away. After more drinks and dancing, Michelle pointed out to me that a guy kept staring at me. I looked over at him and he smiled at me. He was 6'1", looked like he lifts, and had a dark beard. He was the total catch. He made his way over to me and he introduced himself. His name is Brian. Brian offered to buy me any drink I wanted, and I told him that I wasn't going to drink alone. He smiled and we walked over to the bar. He got us 2 shots of the most expensive tequila they had. We drank and we started talking about ourselves and our interests. After a few more drinks and some dancing, we began to make out. The night eventually ended. Brian gave me his number and another kiss. We agreed to meet up for lunch the following weekend. We're both really busy during the week and wouldn't have time to hang out until next Saturday. I woke up in my own bed and couldn't stop thinking about how amazing the night before was. I went to grab a drink of water, and when I put the glass of water up to my lips, I dropped the glass of water. It burned to put anything up to my lips. I ran to the bathroom and noticed that my lips were completely red and starting to blister. I was freaking out and called Alina. She came over to my house, and when she saw my lips, she freaked out also. Her and Michelle drove me to the emergency room. The ER doctor examined my lips and asked if I had any allergies or might have burned myself with something, but I told him no. It then came to me that I had kissed Brian. I told the doctor and he asked if Brian had any STDs, and I told him that I didn't know. I did mention that Brian had a beard, and the doctor asked that maybe he had something in his beard that caused an allergic reaction. The doctor decided to take samples from the blisters that had started to bleed on my face, and he gave me some antibiotics and sent me home. A couple days later, I got a call from the ER doctor and he sounded very concerned. He demanded I give him Brian's information. I asked him what was going on and why he needed Brian's information. The doctor said in a very panicked voice, "Brittany, we found a bacteria in your blood. That bacteria can only be found in corpses." I was confused. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I gave the doctor all of the information he needed. The police were called and paid Brian a visit. A month had passed, and with the antibiotics my doctor gave me, my lips had started to heal and I felt confident enough to go out again with my friends. I was getting ready to head out to the gym and I received a call from the detective that was in charge of looking into the case. He gave me horrifying news. After paying Brian a visit, the police officers noticed Brian seemed anxious and nervous. The officers asked if they could search his home. He gave them permission. Brian lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. The officers noted how clean everything was, except there was this smell. A smell none of the officers had smelled before. The officers searched the apartment and found nothing. The last place to look was the 2 bedrooms. The officers searched Brian's room and found nothing. It was clean. What they found in the 2nd bedroom was horrifying. The detective had to take a second before he could explain. The officers found 6 dead bodies, 2 preserved, 2 rotting, and 2 that were still fresh. This explained the smell of rotting flesh. Brian tried to run, but they dropped him with a taser to the back. Long story short, Brian was arrested and confessed to being a cannibal, which explained why he had passed along the bacteria to me from a kiss. He explained to the officers that he intended on making me his 7th victim because I had the perfect taste. Kissing is how Brian decided who would be his next victim. Think twice before kissing a stranger. Finding love these days is difficult. My name is Carlos and I'm 28 years old. I have focused a lot of time into working and earning enough money to finally buy myself a house. As a workaholic, I never have time to go out, especially time to date. I have tried meeting women on multiple dating websites with little to no luck. Where's the next best place? A bar. I got off work around 7 p.m. on a Thursday night and decided to head downtown for a couple of drinks. I sat at the bar and ordered myself a beer. After enjoying my beer, I decided to head over to another bar. The bartender told me that the young lady at the end of the bar had paid for my drinks. I looked over at her expecting the worst, but to my surprise, she was beautiful. She wore dark clothing, she had beautiful hazel eyes, dark brunette hair, and the most angelic face I've ever seen on a woman. I walked over to introduce myself and thank her for the drinks. Her name was Stephanie, and she said she was new to the area. As a thank you, I bought us both our next couple round of drinks and we started to talk. After some good conversation and many drinks, she insisted we head over to her place. As any guy would, I said yes. I stood up from the stool and we walked out the door together. I put my arm around her shoulders and she put hers around my hips. I never realized how short she really was. I'm 6'4", 210 pounds, and she's roughly 5'1", 110 pounds max. We made it back to her apartment. I can remember seeing multiple boxes everywhere, and she mentioned how she recently moved to the area. I sat down on the couch and she offered me a beer. I had a sip and remember the beer tasting off, almost metallic. I didn't want to ruin my buzz, so I proceeded to enjoy about half of the beer. My vision started to get blurry and I remember seeing double. Eventually, I passed out. I woke up a few hours later tied to a bed. I was still half out of it. My vision was still a little blurry. I heard a voice coming from the kitchen, but it wasn't Stephanie's voice. It was the voice of a man. This man had a raspy, deep voice with an accent. It almost sounded like he was arguing with Stephanie. I heard footsteps coming to the room. I pretended to be asleep. She walked in and said, "You see, he's still out of it. If you're going to do anything, you have to do it now. The drugs can only last so long." My heart sank to my stomach. I heard them discussing prices. But prices about what? She then proceeded to ask how much she could get for my liver, my spleen, and my lungs. The man said, "I'll give you 10,000 for everything." Stephanie sounded upset. The man stormed out of the house and Stephanie followed after him. I could still hear them arguing outside. Quickly, I looked around the entire room for something to help me break free. Luckily, the rope on my right wrist was loose and I was able to break free. I untied my other wrist and ankles and ran to the nearest window. The window was sealed shut. I started to panic and ran into the bathroom. There, I saw the window above the toilet open. I looked down and saw the drop was only 5 feet. I was completely naked, but I didn't care. I managed to find my wallet and my phone, and I dove out of the window. I ran as fast as I could and went back to the bar where I had met Stephanie. The bar was about a half mile from her apartment. The bartender asked me why I was naked, and I told him everything. The bartender called the police for me. Several police officers went back to the apartment and found it completely empty. The apartment had been vacant for over 6 months. Nothing came of this after all, and I'm still dealing with the trauma. Stephanie was luring men to her apartment to sell their organs on the black market. Maybe next time, I'll stick to dating sites. Breakups are never easy. My name is Jason, and I dated my now ex-girlfriend Jennifer for close to 3 years. We had started a life together, and it was great in the beginning. We had a lot of similar interests, which included anything horror, like movies, books, collectibles, etc. Our favorite movies were those that involved demons and anything based on true events. It was a lot of fun, and we definitely went all out on Halloween. Our hobbies were fun and all, but she had a darker obsession. She recently started getting into Satanism and summoning demons. It was really scary. There's nothing wrong with dabbling into horror, but wanting to have a full-on conversation with the devil was a no-go for me. I was raised Catholic, so anything to do with a genre of horror was considered taboo. I came home from work one night around 8 p.m. and the entire apartment was pitch black. I walked into our kitchen area and found a dead cat on the floor, surrounded by 3 dimly lit candles, and what seemed to be the poor animal's insides shaped into a circle around its lifeless body. I stormed into our bedroom, where I found my girlfriend covered in blood, surrounded by candles, and screaming in Latin as she held the severed head of a goat. There were pentagrams smeared in blood all over the walls, and I could see the beheaded body of the goat tucked into the corner of our bedroom. I fell back in disgust and disbelief. She begged me not to go, but I told her it was over and I had enough of her crazy antics. A few months had passed and I had started to feel better after our breakup. Life was going really good for me. One night I had a date planned with a girl I met on Tinder. The date went awesome. We shared a bottle of wine, some pizza, and some great conversation. She agreed to go on a second date with me. Everything was going great. I went home and straight to bed. I woke up at 3 a.m. in agonizing pain. I felt as if I had been stabbed in the abdomen. I ran to the toilet and puked. I thought it was food poisoning, but when I looked into the toilet, I could see it was covered in blood. The next morning, I scheduled an appointment with my doctor. My doctor examined me and ran some tests. He said everything came back normal, but I told him I was in severe pain. It had been about 2 weeks of agonizing pain, and after getting no help from any doctor, I turned to an alternative medicine. I contacted a mutual friend of my ex and I, who was a curandero, or a medicine man. We had met him on one of our many crazy dates. Upon arriving, he had me sit and immediately told me that someone wished harm upon me, and I was a victim of black magic. I knew immediately it was Jennifer who did this to me. I explained to the curandero that Jennifer had an obsession with the devil and demons. He said that she attached a demon to me that was basically eating me from the inside out. In order to reverse this curse, I would have to cover myself with the blood of a black rooster and walk to the cemetery and bury the rooster at 3 a.m., the witching hour. I never imagined having to kill a rooster, especially cover myself with its blood. I walked the 2 miles to the nearest cemetery. I always thought that the cemetery was scary during the day, but it was extremely terrifying at night. I walked up to the gate and took a deep breath. I climbed over the gate and began to hear a shallow voice calling my name. I ignored the voice as I scattered around looking for a place to bury the dead rooster. As I dug the hole, I could hear the ear-shattering roar of what I could assume to be the demon that was eating me alive. After I buried the rooster, I could hear a voice calling for me. As I walked over to the gate, the voice kept getting deeper and louder. I held back the urge to turn around, as the curandero instructed me, "Whatever you do, don't look back." Once I got home, I felt like the world was lifted off my shoulders. I had no more pain, and I got rid of the curse my ex had placed on me.